Back with Shaun Newman in studio to talk about his podcast, the Shaun Newman Podcast. As you said, you mostly talk to hockey athletes, but you've also talked to a number of other athletes locally that are into other sports. One mutual friend we have, Chelsea Steinley, who for some people who follow the program would know she competed for Lakeland College as a mom in her 30s. That's obviously a unique story. You've gotten people like her on. Do you have any particular favorites at this point?
Well, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, it's a non-athlete. I mentioned Cy Campbell in the first part. He's a guy who fought, he's 94 years old. He fought in World War II, as a rear gunner on a Lancaster bomber. And to just hear his story about from the 30s through the dirty 30s into World War II, going over to Europe and flying missions over enemy territory and just kind of what the world was like back then is amazing. As for athletes in general, all their stories are quite spectacular. For me, growing up, I always looked up to the Border Kings, the senior hockey team that used to be in town, and so Mervyn Morcombe, having them in, they kind of were my idols growing up, and to sit and listen and get to sit in a room for a couple hours with them guys was really special, I guess. So those two and Cy on the other side are some that I speak very highly of.
Now, obviously, Cy could tell you a good many different stories. How hard do you have to work to cap the conversation at one point? Because that's obviously part of podcasting, is editing it down to make sure you don't overdo it.
I'm glad you asked that. So I fell in love with podcasting through Joe Rogan, and he is kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
He doesn't edit a whole lot. Actually, it's unedited, it's uncut. Can go for, don't get me wrong, he doesn't go for 7 hours, but it isn't a 20-minute segment. It's not, he doesn't clip it down so you get the best parts. And so I've really taken that approach. I've really taken the approach of I don't want to lead you to the best part. I want you to listen and find out how we get there. And I really enjoy that you're not missing parts of the conversation. You get to hear the entire thing.
So rather than you listen to this during your 30-minute lunch break, listen to this while you're doing all of your household chores kind of thing.
Yeah, well, the lovely thing about a podcast is it's so accessible. It's free. It's right on your phone. Everybody's got a phone now. And so you can be driving to work, which a lot of us in this area drive quite a ways. So you pop it on instead of the radio or Sirius XM, that kind of thing. I do it walking the dogs every morning. Or even just like you say, you put it on your Bluetooth and you do it while you wash the dishes or clean the house. There's many different ways to go about it.
And you've talked a little bit about some of the cool guests you've had. Corey Cross is another one that's come up. Do you have any particular ones that you're very eager to get to?
Well, of course, Braden Holtby's sitting in town. I'd love to have a Stanley Cup champ from the area on. Wade Redden's a guy I'm waiting. You know, he lives in Kelowna, so the next time he's back, we're going to make it work, but that's scheduling. Those two right away come to mind because they're hockey guys. Cal Nichols is a guy from the area that I'd love to have on. Cal Nichols helped save the Oilers back in the day. He's a St. Wahlberg guy, and he was in behind the scenes of the Edmonton Oilers back in the late 90s. And the list just goes on. Like, there's many stories like that. Those are just three that popped in my head.
Okay. Now, are there any particular ones that you have scheduled coming up in the next month or two that you think people will be interested in?
Yeah, so I don't know how much I want to give away here. I'm supposed to be having Reed Wilkins on from 6:30 Ched. Wade Redden is a guy who's supposed to be coming on. Robert Oswell, who owns Roswell, is supposed to come on. There's some guys coming down the pipeline like that. Ross Thompson, who doesn't fit the hockey at all, but Ross Thompson just finished, I think it's his 13th Ironman from Lloyd here. So he's coming on in September. JP Kelly's another guy, former NHLer, coming on. So there's plenty coming up that's going to be a lot of fun.
And that sounds like exciting stuff. Again, you can check that out, Shaun Newman Podcast, all the places you can download it. Thanks for coming in, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Enjoy the rest on Primetime Local News.